Hello everyone, my name is Dagoba and welcome back to Satisfactory. Today we're taking a look at a 100% efficient, self-powered oil setup that'll produce 40 rubber and 40 plastic per minute, as well as over 250 excess megawatts of power for you to use elsewhere in your factory. Let's get into it. Alright, this factory is going to be built on a 9x10 grid of foundations, and for its primary input, we'll use 120 crude oil per minute. You'll also need room to place some water extractors. 3 water extractors will provide exactly the right amount of water for your 8 generators, although you can save a bit of power if you use 4 at the cost of some additional space and building materials. For this design, the crude oil is going to come in at the front right corner of the foundation, and the water extractors are going to be placed along the back, but you can play around with this as needed based on where you decide to build this factory. There is water available within a couple hundred meters of every oil vein in the game. As a note, I am using mods to allow flight and creative building, but this design works 100% in vanilla Satisfactory as well. Start by placing a refinery at the front right corner of the foundation facing towards the back. You're going to need 4 refineries here. 2 of these refineries will make plastic and the other 2 will make rubber. Place 2 more refineries facing in the opposite direction at the end of that line. These refineries will make petroleum coke. Next, run a pipeline along the front of your refineries and use pipeline junction crosses to connect it to each of the first 4 refineries. This is your input line for your crude oil. Along the back of your refineries, use conveyor lifts to place bridge structures on the first 4 refineries. Next, thread a pipeline through the gap and connect it to the refineries with pipeline junction crosses. This pipeline will contain the heavy oil residue, so let's continue it over behind our other 2 refineries. And use pipeline junction crosses to connect it to our 2 petroleum coke refineries. Next, create a raised foundation section towards the back of your refinery. There should be 1 row of foundations behind this for piping from the water extractors, and 1 empty row of foundations in front of it to handle the input of the petroleum coke. Place your first coal power plant perfectly aligned to the edge of your raised foundation, but overlapping the front edge by 1 tick. And then place the remaining 7 generators. Next, use conveyor mergers to combine the outputs of your 2 petroleum coke refineries. After placing your 8 generators, use vertical conveyor lifts to create a bottom-fed system to bring your coke into the generators. Run the water pipeline for your generators along the back foundation, offset by 1 from the center away from the generators. Place your water extractors in the water facing into your power plant. Use pipeline junction crosses to create inputs and outputs along your water main. And then connect the water extractors and generators using the horizontal to vertical build mode. In the sandwich layer beneath your generators, use conveyor mergers to create the outputs for your first 4 refineries. You may wish to keep these separate, but in this case I'm using a truck station for shipping, so it's okay for them to be combined. They'll be sorted out later. Next, run conveyor splitters underneath the coal generators to create a manifold system to provide the petroleum coke to each of the generators. Next, connect power wires to all of your buildings. This will require about 260 megawatts of external power to get up and running, but once it's done so, it'll be completely self-powered. In order to make this plant 100% efficient, we need to fine-tune some of our clock speeds. Start by changing the clock speed on one of your petroleum coke generators to 50%. Next, change the clock speed on one of your coal generators to 20%. Finally, if you're using 4 water extractors, you'll need to set all 4 of them to 75%. If you're using 3, you can leave them at 100%. In addition to producing 40 plastic and 40 rubber per minute, this plant will also produce 546.7 megawatts of power while consuming only 250.4 megawatts of power. Once we get some more advanced components and some alternate recipes, we'll be able to make a bigger and more efficient oil processing setup later on, but this is a great place to get started when you first unlocked the oil processing milestone. And that's going to do it for today. Hopefully you guys have found this guide for a 100% efficient, self-powered, basic oil setup helpful. If you have, leave a like on this video and subscribe if you'd like to see more. Thank you again for watching and have an efficient day. See you soon.